Welcome everybody back to another episode of Warm Weather Fans. My name is Zeke Palermo, joined as always by Brian Stone and Matt Miguez. We've got the whole crew here today, a little atypical for us, but it's glad we've got the whole crew. I am back from the abyss. Matt is back from his contractual obligations as an educator of the youth. And it's good to have everybody back. How are you guys doing?
Matt, you haven't been here much longer than the rest of us, so
That's
you go
fair.
ahead.
Man, life's good. I've always had an appreciation for teachers, right? Both my parents are teachers, so like I've had a lifelong appreciation for teachers and what they do. But now that I am one, good God Almighty, teachers rock. We deserve pay raises across the board.
He never
Guys
felt
been doing it for
I haven't taught a single class yet, but I deserve a pay raise.
Brian, what's up with you, man?
not much. Living the dream. Two kids under the age of 5. The whole deal. Matt, I was telling Zeke this story last time off camera. I feel a little bad. You said you're teaching high school, right?
Yeah, freshman English.
Okay. We had some real jerks when I was a senior in high school that I hope you don't have to deal with anybody on that level, where we had a guy for a senior prank put baby oil on the linoleum floor, and our teacher did like a full-on like penguin like stomach slide across the floor because it was just slick. And I'm like, I hope you don't have to deal with that.
Yeah, I really hope that doesn't happen to me because I'm clumsy enough as it is.
Mm-hmm.
So if you add baby oil on an already slick floor, yeah, that's going to be a problem.
It was sorry, we can get into Georgia Southern here in a second. It was devious the way he did it too. It was a water bottle that had baby oil in it, so it looked like water, but he had poked a hole in the top, and he was just walking beside squeezing baby oil on the ground as he walked by. It was crazy.
Zeke, before we get started, because I know we got to get to Georgia Southern football. I've got to ask about your experience in Boston, and
It was good, man.
I've got to ask the age-old question: did you go to a Harvard bar?
We did not. We went to a Boston bar, but nothing in Harvard.
You go to Cheers?
We walked by it. Didn't go.
Yeah.
I think my brother may have used the restroom in there, but we didn't go in. I think the big takeaway was don't go to that city on a Monday. There were kind of 2 historical sites that were really top of the list. The USS Constitution, which is like the oldest active naval boat in the world, at least the country, but maybe the world. And then we wanted to check out Bunker Hill. Both of those closed on Mondays. So awesome.
Yeah, don't go to Boston on a Monday.
Yeah, that don't go to Boston on a Monday was the big takeaway of the trip. It was cool. My brother and I checked out TD Garden, which was kind of fun. They had the Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis merch on great discount because neither play for the team anymore. That was exceptional.
Drew Holiday's 2 teams removed now.
Yeah, he is. So it was a good time. I really enjoyed it. But we're glad to be back. I'm no longer recording from the abyss. And we're here to talk about some Georgia Southern football. The Eagles, who last year went 8-5. This is the 4th year under Clay Helton. This will be one of those perhaps extra in-depth or extra long episodes because obviously Brian is our resident Georgia Southern guy. So this episode, as opposed to like a round table, will lean more towards a barrage of questions geared towards him. But before we do that, Matt, what's your high-level overview for this team? What did you make of them last season, and where do you think they go from here?
Obviously they put together a good record last year, going 8-5. But I never really felt super impressed. Right? They hung with Boise State early on in the year. had some good wins, got a win over the eventual Sun Belt champ in Marshall, beat James Madison, had that win over Georgia State. So the end of September through middle of October, that 4-week stretch, they looked really good. But then they got their doors blown off by Old Dominion on a Thursday night. Struggled to beat a really struggling South Alabama team last year, and then finished off strong, getting wins over both Coastal and App. But again, never overly impressed with what Georgia Southern was able to do last year.
Yeah,
now,
oh, I'm sorry. Keep going.
No, I'm just saying, what's going to be interesting this year is when you look at their schedule. And I know we'll dive deeper into the schedule as we get on with the show. But starting the first 2 weeks out west, one of them being at Clay Helton's former job at USC, and then your first 2 conference games are at James Madison and home against Southern Miss. If you can make it to the morning of October 10th, 4-2, I think you're in great shape if you're Georgia Southern. The likelihood of being 4-2 at that point, we'll see. But if you can wake up on Friday, October 10th with a 4-2 record, Clay Helton's got to be feeling really good about where his team is.
Yeah. You mentioned it. The story of Clay Helton, Georgia Southern teams has obviously been leaving meat on the bone. The Old Dominion loss last year and the Troy loss. I guess they kind of offset like a James Madison and Marshall win, but those were 2 games last year that that kept Georgia Southern out of a Sun Belt championship game. You go back to the year before where the team ends the season on a 5-game losing streak. So that's kind of been the tone of Georgia Southern in past years. Brian, you have obviously a more intimate opinion and knowledge of this. So what's the state of the team after last year and heading into the week 1?
Well, I wanted to start off with a stat for you guys to just kind of put into perspective what's been going on in Statesboro the last couple of years. So there are 5 teams in the Sun Belt that have more than 40 wins from 2018 to 2024. 4 of those teams are Troy, Louisiana, Appalachian State, and Coastal Carolina. All 4 of those teams have a conference title. Would you like to guess who the 5th team is? So basically, they have been basically the Dallas Cowboys of the Sun Belt Conference, where they'll win some regular season games. When it comes to put the chips down, are they going to show up? Probably not. And, expectations are high. It seems on the surface right now that the East is a 2-horse race with them and JMU. We can talk about that upcoming game when we get to the schedule, but I don't feel overly confident about it. And there's historical precedents as to why. But listen, they have 9 players that are either on the first or second team preseason all-conference team. They have 7 first-team all-Sun Belt players. Theoretically, they should be in the mix, like right up until the end of the season. But what Matt said last year about the Old Dominion game and the Troy games has just been par for the course for them. They can do it up until a certain point, and then late in the season, whether it be Chad Lunsford coaching the team or whether it be Clay Helton, they will hit a point where they just lose focus and they're not ready and they're underprepared for a game, and they just get their doors blown off and just make the other team look like the 85 Bears or 2007 Patriots or whatever historically great team you want to compare them to. But they'll pull a win out of their back pocket. That, like, the Marshall comeback last year was insane, and there were extenuating circumstances as to why that happened. But they'll pull a game like that out where they beat the eventual conference champs, but then they can't beat like Troy at home, who's like a 4-win team. So I would say expectations are tempered. I went on gsufans.com the other day. There's a poll up among the users. There's like 200 votes on it as to what our record's going to be this year. And with all of that said, with all the preseason conference players, everything, the leading vote getter was for us to finish 7-5 in the regular season. So I think everybody is pretty. They are. We realize that there's a good bit of talent on this team, but everybody is just kind of waiting for the eventual screw up so that we can finally get to the point where we all logically arrive at the end of every season.
Sure. Yeah. So the story for this team obviously is so much returning talent, and that starts at the quarterback position for the first time under Clay Helton. You get a returning quarterback in J.C. French. French last year passed for 2,800 yards, 17-11 touchdown to interception, completed passes at a 65% clip, also ran for 386 yards, or I'm sorry, 239 yards. He gained 386. That was third best.
Stupid rule, by the way. Stupid rule.
We will always hold that opinion, official opinion of the pod. Stupid rule. Sacks are not tackles for loss. But so it's J.C. French. There's not a ton of competition behind him. They brought in Turner Helton, Clay Helton's son from, I believe, West Carolina. You also have
WKU, I thought.
Or I'm sorry, Western Kentucky. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you get a redshirt freshman in Tyler Budge, who did not play last year, and a couple of true freshmen. Where do you guys stand on J.C. French? Because last year he was a little inconsistent, turnover prone at times, particularly in the bowl game. But in my eyes, he's one of the top end returning quarterbacks in the conference. So, Matt, again, we'll start with you. Where does he land in your rankings, and what are your concerns with that?
Yeah, I agree, especially in terms of returning quarterbacks. He's definitely up there in the conference. Yeah, he turned the ball over a lot last year. His completion percentage wasn't, mind-boggling. It was solid. What did he end up completing? 65. Yeah, 66%. Two out of three ain't bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like as a coach, you're going to live with a 65% completion percentage when you're winning football games. For J.C. French, I think it's just going to come down to better decision making and less turnovers, which comes with experience. Now he's got that full season of experience under his belt, and he's got that full off season of knowing that come August 31st or August 30th or whatever it may be, that I'm going to be the starting quarterback. You spend your off season preparing differently, knowing you're the guy, right? You don't have to worry about a competition. You don't have to worry about somebody looking over your shoulder. You're the dude. And so I think that's going to be really good for him. I think he's going to have a really good year. Now, is it going to be enough? Is there an offensive line in front of him? Is there enough skill players around him to, really put something magical together in Statesboro? Potentially, right? There's definitely some talent out there. And again, we'll dive into that as we go through each position group, as we always do. I think the sky's the limit for J.C. French. It's just going to come down to, can he limit the turnovers, which was his big problem last year.
Mm-hmm. Brian, with Dexter Williams out of the picture, what's J.C. French's floor ceiling expectation?
Well, I mean, his floor is throwing 4 picks in a bowl game. And as we've seen with I really hope that actually makes it onto the episode, unlike the last time that you did that sound, and then it just nothing happened, so it made it seem like you were insane. The floor is throwing 4 picks in a bowl game against a team that has been an FCS team for the past 2 years and was breaking in like a new head coach. That's the floor. The ceiling, I think, is the game that he played against Boise State in the opener last year, because I don't have his stats for that game specifically in front of me, but if you go back and actually watch the game, he was the only reason they were even like in the game, because Ashton Jeanty, who, now we know is a top 5 pick in the NFL draft, top 10 pick, just ran roughshod over that defense. And he put up 45 on Boise. So, I mean, he played really, really well in that game. Now I will say this, having said what floor ceiling is, if the season last year was 12 games long and not 13, I'd feel a lot better about it. But that bowl game left a really, really sour taste in my mouth, and it gave me like Vietnam PTSD style flashbacks to Davis Brin throwing the football or attempting to. And Zeke, I made this joke to you in the Southern Miss episode about putting your hand on a hot stove. Clay Helton will put his hand on a hot stove until the skin is off of his fingers and it's just like bones exposed, like third-degree burns, need to amputate the hand, the whole deal. We saw that with Davis Brin. He literally won't pull a quarterback that he has hand chosen unless barring injury or potential fan revolt. So those are the two conditions that have to be met. I've got to say, one area that he needs to get better is pushing the ball down the field. He was very like dink and dunk last year, and I don't know if that was like a product of the offense design, but it got really predictable to the point where there were games, JMU comes to mind, where screen passes are getting taken back to the house for 6 because every team knows, hey, he's probably not going to throw it further than 10 yards down the field. So I'm not saying you need to be Kyle Van Treese, grip it and rip it every play, but the threat of throwing the ball down the field has to be there. And frankly, it really wasn't. And when you are a quarterback that doesn't bring a lot with your legs, the way that he really doesn't, you can't also be timid to throw the ball further than 5 yards down the field.
Sure. And then, Matt, you alluded to this. That then leads to the skill positions starting at running back. You lose Jalen White, now a Green Bay Packer, who ran for 770 yards last year. But you get guys number 2 and 3 in O.J. Arnold and David, is it Mbadinga? Badinga, you don't say the M. You get those guys back. You also, I've seen a lot of buzz, unsubstantiated buzz to this point, but buzz nonetheless about Terrence Gibbs, who's like the highest rated prospect in team history, but is rushed for something, maybe ran for 40 yards last year. So what are y'all's thoughts? He ran
for 4 yards last year.
Awesome. So
just really quick, Terrence Gibbs so far to this point has been like Santa Claus. Like everybody wants to believe in him. No one has seen him. Like he basically doesn't exist. And there's a reason for that. He had a really bad injury in high school, which is why I think they landed him in the first place, was because a lot of teams who had him high up on recruiting boards and were making offers saw that injury and were like, actually, let's go use our scholarship elsewhere. And so I think that's the reason why he ended up at Southern. To this point, he hasn't done anything. And I don't know if he's even 100% because we're 2-3 years removed from the injury at this point. So I'm like, if he's not fully recovered, like he's not ever going to fully recover. But sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. That's your thoughts on Terrence Gibbs, O.J. Arnold, David Badinga. How does that room look for you?
I think O.J. Arnold's electric, honestly. Like, I thought he and White were a really good 1-2 combo last year. They really did operate like thunder and lightning. Like, it was Jalen White was the thumper between the tackles, and O.J. Arnold was the guy that you could throw a screen pass out in space and he could get you 20 yards. I liked Badinga in the little bit I saw of him as well. He kind of filled in as the number 2 when Jalen White would be injured or O.J. Arnold would need to take a breather. I liked what he brought in spurts. He only had 229 yards last year. But they kind of used him as sort of a scat back, change of pace type guy. I don't know truly, like, again, Gibbs has been like this fairy tale that we've been told as Georgia Southern fans every year. Like, this is the year he's going to show up. And then it's like, he runs for 4 yards and you're just like, all right, we'll get him next time. So, if he's a part of the backfield and he's 100%, then yeah, wheels up for the running back room. But if not, I think OJ Arnold and Badinga and whoever else they want to sprinkle in can handle the load for sure.
Sure. Matt, with Arnold and Badinga each weighing about 190 pounds, if Terrence Gibbs, who appears to be the heaviest running back in that room at 210, isn't available, do you have any concerns about not having that type of power back guy? Is that something you need for a team to be successful?
I mean, does it help? Absolutely. Is it a necessity? No, I don't think so. I think you just have to, kind of tweak your playbook and your offensive system to what you have. If you've got a couple of 5'11", 190-pound east-west playmakers, then just throw a lot of screen passes.
Sure.
A lot of pitch plays, a lot of wildcat. As a diehard Saints fan, there was that 3-year stretch where Dennis Allen loved to run Alvin Kamara right between the tackles, and why? That's not who he is.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a north-south runner. And so yeah, I mean, again, having a Jalen White to really beat up on the defensive line, and then you throw in the change of pace with OJ Arnold. Is that a nice thing to have? Absolutely. But does it make or break this offense for me? No.
Okay.
If Terrence Gibbs is healthy, great. You use him to the best of his ability. Let him, bruise up the defensive line and make some things happen in the middle. But no, just change your play calling to what you have available.
So then looking over at the wide receivers, you lose Derwin Burgess, who is a NFL free agent, I believe. I don't think he's signed anywhere. He'll probably flirt around with practice squads. He was the number 1 guy with 59 catches for 659 yards. But behind him was Josh Dallas, who was absolutely electric last year with 46 receptions for 614 and 6 touchdowns. You also get Dalen Cobb back with 52 catches for 599 and 4 touchdowns. You do lose tight end Tyler Fromm, who was a part of that receiving core. But, you've got Cobb and Dallas, who were a really good duo last year as the 2 and 3. Now moving up to 1 and 2. I feel really good about them. Brian, what's your take on that group?
Yeah, I think Josh Dallas has what it takes to easily be the one on this team. Now, if they want to deploy him in the slot primarily, I mean, they run a lot of 3 receiver sets anyway. So you can put him in the slot for 90% of his snaps and he won't come off the field because we don't go heavy personnel like ever. That's just not really like what we do. I think the last time I can only name one time we went from under center last year in like a heavy package, and I think it ended up in a fumble. So that should kind of tell you where we're at with that. I feel very confident with Dallas. He was great last year in the times that they threw him the football. I think Cobb is a good complementary piece, obviously. Almost had 600 yards receiving. It was very spread out among the receivers to where you couldn't just like zone in on one guy and go, okay, if we take this guy away, we don't have to worry about anybody else. I mean, there's some more ancillary pieces too who can slot in. You've got this transfer Camden Brown from Auburn, who's 6'3", 200 pounds. Hadn't really done a lot, but that's kind of been the MO with a lot of the transfers they brought in. Like LV Bunkley Shelton came in from Oklahoma, kind of had no real production to speak of, and then was pretty good for them. So they're pretty good at finding guys to I think fill what would be the X role. And the X role, if you can beat a guy one-on-one, they'll throw you the ball, but it's not one of those where it's like we have to have a strong X receiver in order to make this offense run. So in that respect, like I feel pretty good about the way that the receiving core kind of looks as of today.
Sure. You mentioned Camden Brown, who Phil Steele, as we read it today, projects as the 3rd starting wide receiver. Over 3 years at Auburn, he had 289 yards. You also get Brian Green, who transferred in from Florida after getting no play. You get Marcus Sanders, who did a little bit here, 158 receiving yards. Matt, who do you like as the third wide receiver in this group?
That's going to be really interesting to watch play out. You brought up Sanders, who really didn't do a ton last year. 9 catches, had a touchdown in there. It's going to be interesting to see if he can carve out a true role for himself. But look, when you've got a 1-2 punch like Josh Dallas and Dalen Cobb, who again were both phenomenal last year. If you can get similar production out of them, it's going to be hard to be a number 3 in that room. Because J.C. French has already got chemistry with those two guys, and he's going to go to those guys 9 times out of 10. So I don't know if a third wide receiver is really going to be super important in this offense. But yeah, I mean, I would like to see Marcus Sanders carve out a role for himself as that number 3 guy.
Sure. And then moving to the offensive line, you return a handful of really important starters that are all now seniors this year. You get Chandler Strong, who started 6 games last year playing center. You've got Caleb Cook, who was a third-team All-Sun Belt player last year at right guard. And then Peachin Wembley, who was also third-team Sun Belt at left guard. But then over on the tackles is a lot more experience, and I anticipate that's where both of you will have your greatest concerns. Phil Steele has Robert Wright playing at right tackle. Robert Wright at right tackle. That's a guy who's not played in 2 years. He redshirted 2 years ago and was out with a knee injury last season. And then you get Kalen Williams over on the left tackle, who had 2 starts. He appeared in all 13 games, but that's obviously mostly special teams type packages with only 2 starts. Brian, with 2 pretty fresh, if not entirely fresh tackles, how much does that impact the ceiling here?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's going to be trial by fire. I mean, there's really no other way to put it. When you basically, I mean, Kalen Williams, I think played kind of all over the line last year. Like, I think if I recall correctly, I don't have like where he lined up on every game in front of me, but I'm pretty sure he played some like a little bit of right tackle. I think he filled in at guard a little bit. So I mean, he's kind of played all over the line. Obviously, Robert Wright has to replace our boy Bryson Broadway, who's now in the CFL, I believe.
Shout out to Bryson Broadway.
Yeah, shout out to him for coming on the show last year. We really appreciate it.
That was a lot of fun.
But yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm not inventing fire by saying the middle of the line, the interior, is going to be where the strength of this line is. Now, Caleb Williams does have some nice size to him, and he's 6'7", 295. So, he's at least got the intangibles of like, or the tangibles, like he's physically large. Like we'll see how it goes from there. But I mean, the offensive line has been pretty much a bright spot over the last couple of years. So until this core of the middle graduates and we have to replace all of them, then I'll be a lot more concerned. But yeah, I mean, the tackles are gonna have to learn on the fly, but it happens with everybody.
Yeah. Brian, Matt, do you have anything else to add to the offensive line? It's a pretty straightforward story there.
Yeah, like I'll just kind of add on to what Brian said. The middle of the line is definitely going to be the strength. But one benefit to the tackles that Brian kind of alluded to is you talked about Kalen Williams and his size at 6'7", almost 300 pounds. That is the one thing as an offensive line coach that you cannot teach. You can't coach size.
Yeah.
You either have it or you don't. So the footwork, hand placement, all of that can be developed. All of that can be taught. Clearly he has playing experience at most positions on the offensive line, so I think that will help. Do I think that they're going to have the best offensive line in the conference? Probably not. But could they be a top 5 group with some chemistry and cohesion as the season goes on? Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good. Any other thoughts before we move on about the offense? Big picture, small picture. Any other thoughts?
It's going to be interesting to see if they deploy this new tight end River Helms in the same way that they did Tyler Fromm last year, kind of as like a big body red zone style target. I mean, Fromm didn't exactly put up like gaudy numbers, but that's more of a function of the offense just being like pick your poison a little bit. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see if I imagine he's going to run a roughly similar amount of routes. Like I can't see them keeping him in as a 6th offensive lineman basically for the majority of the season.
Sure. That then moves us obviously to the defense, where they return 7 starters, starting up front with the defensive line. You get Davian Rhodes, Latrell Bullard, and MJ Stroud all back. I mean, that's a really, really good group. And then filling the other defensive tackle spot opposite Bullard is Uche Ilo, who did not play last year as a true freshman at Georgia Tech. The big stories as it relates to the defensive line or defense as a whole is obviously going to be the loss of Marquez Watson-Trent, who was an 100-plus tackler last year. And off rip, I'm willing to put money probably the year before. Really a run-stopping guy, very, very good in that regard. Didn't apply pressure to quarterbacks too often, but was very good in the middle. Brian, big picture stuff. How does this group look without Trent, without David Gilmore, who was your leading sack getter last season? How does this group look as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, to me, the big things are somebody's got to get a quarterback because I think, like you mentioned, Ilo, the Georgia Tech transfer, and Latrell Bullard, who's 6'1", 340, are going to be able to clog the middle and stop the run. But we just need somebody to be that leading sack getter, someone who's going to hurry opposing quarterbacks, speed them up, because that has been kind of an area where the defense has been lacking in years past, where it's like we don't have a number 1 pass rusher. Like we're having to kind of manufacture a pass rush, bring blitzes. Like we have to do more like exotic things, because frankly they just haven't had that guy that's like, okay, this guy can go out on 3rd down and is going to at least make the quarterback like think about it. It's just kind of been like pass rusher by committee a little bit, kind of similar to the receivers. So that's going to be the biggest thing to me. I don't really have much concern about the 2 defensive tackles. It's more the defensive ends, because they're on the lighter side. I mean, Rhodes is 235, Stroud is 225, according to Phil Steele. But the other thing too, and this made me laugh, Brendan Harrington comes over, the linebacker from App State, to play there. You think people in Boone are happy to see him come over? You think he would be welcomed back with open arms? Probably not.
That's one of those Yankees Red Sox trades.
Yeah.
Moving over, Matt, high level, what do you dislike? What do you like and dislike about this group?
I really like the depth they bring back with a guy like Latrell Bullard, in that defensive front. And also you've got a guy in the defensive secondary. I'm drawing a blank on his name. Chance Gamble, the redshirt senior defensive back, had 3 interceptions last year. Really just a ball hawk. I like the veteran pieces returning in both of those spots. 7 starters back from a year ago. That experience level is huge. I think they take a big step forward this year, because he had several games last season where, granted, the offense really put them in some bad spots with some costly turnovers at times, but you had a lot of games where you gave up, 35 or more points. And so I would like to see that number go down a little bit. You gave up 56 to Boise State. You gave up 52 to Ole Miss. Granted, those are 2 very high power offenses. 47 to Old Dominion. You gave up 30 to South Alabama. I think
Matt,
that makes my.
Can I break in just 2 seconds?
Yeah.
The reason for those though were the run defense. Like each one of those games, other than maybe save Ole Miss because they had future professional football players on their team. But it's like the majority of those, I mean, Ashton Jeanty was the reason Boise scored as many points as they did. Old Dominion, not being able to contain Colton Joseph was a big reason why they scored as many points as they did. So it's just like, if the run defense is there and they can actually tackle and stop people, and like at times last year, I feel really good about the secondary. I don't think the secondary was the reason their defense had those
I agree.
lapses last year. So
no, I would agree with that. They gave up 28 points a game last year, which is a lower average than I had originally thought that they had. But again, 7 starters returning. You've got a lot of experience at a lot of different levels. I'd really like to see that number closer to 25, 24 even this year. And I think that if they can get to that point, they'll really be contending for the Sun Belt East title.
Yeah. So we talked about the defensive front, which returns 3 starters and gets a real big boy in Ilo to fill the other defensive tackle. This team is running, as Phil Steele projects it, a pretty traditional 4-2, where you get Brendan Harrington, who, as Brian Stead comes over after 6 seasons at App State. So you'd hope a 25-year-old can be a steadying presence among a group of guys who can't yet drink. We'll find out. And then on the other side of him is Brandon Tyson, who played
at Elon.
Played at Elon last year. 73 tackles, 9 tackles for loss 2 years ago, but took a big step last season. This is my fault. Don't know if that's because of injury or talent. Only 3 starts, 25 tackles last season. So you get a very experienced Harrington in. You get a little less experience in Tyson, especially at FBS. But that seems like it will be a good enough core for the time being. And then you move on to the secondary that, as Brian said, I think is probably the best group on the defense. You've got Aiden Jackson, Tracy Hill, and Chance Gamble. Gamble last year was a second-team All-Sun Belt player. Hill and Jackson also played well. Then in the safeties, you get Justin Myers and Jaden Davis. Myers coming back. Jaden Davis played in 8 games but did not record a single stat last year for Georgia Tech. A lot of Georgia Tech transfers. Is that typically the case? Do they usually go in-state for those transfers?
No, I think it's a weird amount of Georgia Tech transfers, to be quite honest. We don't always just pluck from the team in Atlanta like that. The one thing I want to add about Hill and Gamble that Zeke, you and I have pointed this out in previous previews. 2 corners, 6'2" or taller, like that's not nothing. So if there are big physical receivers on the outside, like they can theoretically play with those guys. It's not one of those where it's like, I don't know, man, one of our corners is 5'10", like someone could go get a jump ball over him. It's like both of those guys are tall to be playing corner. And then even Aiden Jackson, our nickel is 5'11". So, in theory, like that should be the strength of the defense right there.
Yeah.
Sure. And then just kind of wrap on the roster construction. Looking at the coaches, obviously Clay Helton at the helm. You get Ryan Applin, who was the offensive coordinator last season. Before that was a pass games coordinator. And then you get Brandon Bailey, who, despite his 3rd year as defensive coordinator, is still the youngest DC in FBS. Brian, I guess the big question is Clay Helton. Where do you stand? What's your patience with him? Can he survive another late season skid or real disappointing should have win losses like Old Dominion was last year?
Well, the AD made the galaxy brain maneuver to extend him after the season, so he's more than likely going to survive no matter what this season looks like. You know, I watched a little bit of his Sunbelt Media Day, and I've come to the conclusion that with Clay Helton, believe half of what you see and none of what you hear, because he will just talk and not say anything of value. Like he just says stuff, and you're just like, all right, none of what you said means anything to me. Like as a fan, like, you know, there was that time 2 years ago with Davis Brin where a reporter in a post-game press conference asked him about the offense when they were just throwing pick after pick after pick. And he's like, I trust in our offense. Okay, great. So you either don't know what's going on, or you know, at that point in the season, it was like, you either don't know what's going on or you're incompetent. So just pick one. So that's what I mean. He's the master of like coach speak. So anything that comes out of his mouth can be immediately dismissed. He will tell you it's raining, and then you can open the blinds and there's sunshine outside. Like he will just straight up not tell you anything. So my patience level with him is dwindling, I would say. If he can't take this team and do something, again, I read that stat off, and he's part of it. The 40 plus wins over the last 6 years, 0 Sunbelt title game appearances, obviously 0 Sunbelt titles. I mean, how many years can you do the same thing over and over and over and over again and expect different results, especially with a guy that literally, from what I've noticed, won't give another quarterback a chance once he's anointed a starter. That person is almost set for life, barring like getting hurt or, like I said, the fans uprising and being like, we will do something about this if you don't change quarterbacks. So it's just like, you've got a guy who's hard-headed. The team loses focus late in seasons, and you watched it happen last year, and it's happened years before, and you can't listen to a word he says because none of it matters. I mean, So it's like, yeah, he won 8 games, but this team is crazy talented, and they shouldn't have been sitting at home at the end of the season with their fingers crossed, hoping that JMU beat Marshall. Like, that should have been, we have our destiny in our own hands. Instead, like I said, they were sitting at home with their fingers crossed, being like, oh, Marshall, don't come back. And then Marshall did. And then it was like, okay, well, we're going to play in the 68 Ventures Bowl or whatever. Like, who cares? So that's just where I'm at with him.
Yeah, Matt, why don't you walk us through their schedule for the upcoming year?
Oh man, it is a doozy. So again, first 2 weeks are on the road, at Fresno State and then at USC. Then they come home for a pair with Jacksonville State and Maine. Then the Sun Belt slate starts at James Madison on September 27th. Then they come home on a Thursday night to host Charles Huff and Southern Miss. The Georgia State battle for homecoming on October 18th. And then October 25th is going to be one that I'm watching very closely when they go up to Jonesboro to play Arkansas State. I think that one could be a lot of fun. And you know, maybe by that point in the season has some implications for both teams, depending on how we see things shaken out there. Month of November, they go to App, home against Coastal, home against Old Dominion, before they wrap it up Thanksgiving weekend on the road in Huntington at Marshall. Do either of you happen to have the win total in front of you for the Eagles?
7.5.
Ooh, 7.5.
I like
I'll
that.
take that. I'll take that. I'll take the over on that.
As you ran through those games, I saw 9 games where I think I would consider Georgia Southern favorites. Whether they play that out, who freaking knows? But Fresno, Jack State, Maine, Southern Miss, Georgia State, Arkansas State, Coastal, Old Dominion, and Marshall. That's 9 games I think Georgia Southern goes into as favorites. Brian, you're starting to smirk.
You guys
he's pissed that you skipped the App game.
No, I'm not. You guys are not factoring in the random egg or 2 that they're going to lay.
Well,
in the during the season. Like,
sure,
no, but that's what I mean is why why we just went over all of the talent they have. The fan base thinks they're going 7-5. Like the
Sure.
majority of the people on GSUfans.com think they're going 7-5, even with all the talent that they have and the schedule that they have. People are still like, yeah, we're probably gonna like get upset on the road against App that night, and then we'll probably lose a home game that we have no business losing, and that'll be the season right there.
Mm-hmm.
But that's life in the Sun Belt. Like every
Not for
fan
everybody.
base, you can't count on one hand the number
Matt,
of Sun Belt fan bases.
how many Sun Belt championships does your team have in the last 5 years?
That would be one.
Okay. And that's one more than Georgia Southern has.
I'm not saying that. What I'm getting at is, every year Cajun fans have that same fear that they're going to drop a game that they shouldn't. They call it in Lafayette, they call it Cajun disaster syndrome. It's the similar premise across the Sun Belt. Zeke, even years when Georgia State's good, you're always thinking about that one egg that they're going to lay that could derail their entire season. I'm not saying that, Clay Helton is this God sent head coach that's going to, right the ship in Statesboro. But I think that, when you look at the way the schedule is going to play out, like I said off the top, if you're 4-2 after the Southern Miss game, you're going to be well on your way to a 9-win season and an appearance in the conference title game.
Yeah. I think the games that give me pause of the ones I rattled off, I think Arkansas State will not be easy in Jonesboro. Obviously, that hinges entirely on whether or not Arkansas State defense wants to show up or not. And we still don't know what we're going to get out of Southern Miss. That's another one that is a little wild cardy, as is Coastal, especially after the App State game. If you lose Arkansas State, take a bye, and then lose at App State, that Coastal Carolina could absolutely be part of a downslide that then falls into a loss against Old Dominion or Marshall at the end of the season. I think Brian is right in his pessimism in terms of really surpassing anything. Like, what's your projected number then?
Me?
Yeah.
I think they win 7 games. I think they win 7, they go to a bowl game, and then they do their annual we lay an egg in December, and we spend the offseason pretending it didn't happen.
So at 7-6, is Clay Helton fired?
No, because he just inked a big old extension because the AD is a genius and definitely not a dog that rolls over for Clay Helton and lets him pet his belly. Definitely
Clay
not.
Helton's extension runs through 2029, so you're locked into him. He probably has at least till 27 before those conversations start.
I do like, when Binko, our old AD, left at the end of last year, everybody was glad to be rid of him because he was the ultimate front runner. Like when we won, you never stopped hearing about it, and when we lost, he was a ghost. Like no one could find him. Like especially during the Davis Brin season, everybody was like, "Is his office empty? It seems cleaned out. Like where is he?" So the new AD comes in, and people on social media like Twitter and stuff are vying for him, and he just seems to be the same as Binko, just with a different packaging. Like he's the same dude. Believes in Clay Helton to the very end. Gives him a giant extension because he finally won 8 games. I don't know, man. Like, okay, so here's my rundown of the schedule. You ready? All right. I think they beat Fresno on the road because Fresno is starting over with North Dakota State's old head coach. Matt Ince is now their head coach. I think they're starting over. They're obviously going to lose to USC in week 2. Jacksonville State is also starting over, plus that game's at home. They lost Rich Rodriguez to West Virginia, so I think they win that game. I think they beat Maine, who's an FCS school, or I guess they're still an FCS school, I believe. They're not one of the weird ones that got called up. Would you guys like to hazard a guess the last time that Georgia Southern played James Madison and it was the margin of victory was fewer than 7 points? Would you like to take a guess when that was?
probably when both teams were in the FCS.
It was October of 1992. Every time a team has played at home in this series, they have won by 7 or more points since 1992. I don't know why he keeps hitting that sound effect. Like these are facts. Like I read them off Winsipedia. All right, so you get a bye week coming off of that. Southern Miss is going to be a wild card because, Zeke, you and I had this talk. To me, they have the lowest floor, or not the lowest floor, but they have a solid floor of I think they win 5 games, but they could be either a 5-win team that needs another season to bring more talent over, or they could vie for the West with Louisiana and Southern Miss or Texas State. Who knows? Like we'll have to see. Georgia State, I think, is a win. It's homecoming it's at home. Georgia State got shellacked last year when they played Georgia Southern, and I think that kind of just repeats. Like I don't think Georgia State's ready yet for this level of football. And then at Arkansas State, I do think they win that game, Georgia Southern, just because Arkansas State's defense is so horrendous that Georgia Southern would just have to forget how to play offense, which I'm not putting it past them, but Arkansas State's defense is truly one of a kind, like in the conference. It's so bad. All right. Then they get a bye week. Like I said, I wouldn't be shocked if they lost to App on the road on November 6th because it's a rivalry game. It's on the road. Georgia Southern always plays worse on the road. There's no way really around it. I think they beat Coastal at home. I think they lose to Old Dominion at home. The last couple years, they just haven't shown up to play Old Dominion, whether it's been at home or on the road. Now, 2 years ago, it was the Davis Brin experience, so take that for what it's worth. But last year, when I was watching that Old Dominion Georgia Southern game, I didn't see Georgia Southern have a single answer for Colton Joseph. So I say they lose that one, and I think they beat Marshall. But I think what it's going to be is the onus this season. If the James Madison Georgia Southern game goes like I think, where James Madison wins, they're going to have to maintain that lead the whole time. So we'll see if they can. But we've seen last year Georgia Southern was in the driver's seat with a 2-game advantage in the East and found a way to blow it. So this is why, like I said, you can say it's pessimism. Those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. Like, it's one of those. So it's not pessimism so much as it's like weariness of like, all right, where's the random road loss where we lose by 30 points going to come in? All right, where's the random home loss where we lose to Troy last year and Caldwell throws for completes 85% of his passes at home, in Statesboro? Where's that game coming in? So you have to kind of factor these things in with Clay Helton.
Yeah. Matt, do you have any lingering thoughts before we sign off?
Nah, man. I think we've kind of hit it all. Georgia Southern's got a roster that's able to compete. They've got a schedule that seems favorable in more parts than not. It's just going to come down to, can they put it all together in order to make it happen? Or, like Brian said, will it be another, season where fans sit and wonder throughout the offseason, what if? And that's going to be the big question, and hopefully they can avoid it because it's good for the conference when Georgia Southern's really good. So we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah. Well, Matt, why don't you start and sign us off then, and we'll get out of here.
Oh, what an honor for me! You can find us on social media at Warm Weather Fans. You can find me on social media at Miguez Matt.
Yeah, as always, you can find me on X at Warm Weather or at Warm Weather Fans. I'm running that account, so you can find me there, but also at Watch the Stone. To lend one last little bit of credence to the Clay Helton never says anything of value, he claimed that at Sunbelt Media Days, the team had a chip on their shoulder from not making the Sunbelt title game last year. Does that mean anything? Probably not, but let's see. So email the show, warmweatherfans@gmail.com.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick. Sorry. We made this announcement on our Twitter. We are having Phil Steele on. If you have questions, email them to us, tweet them at us, whatever. I will ask Phil Steele on the air. If the question is not something dumb, I will ask him that on the air. So keep that in mind,
absolutely.
everybody.
Yeah. Well, you can find me on Twitter at Zeke Palermo, ZekePalermo. As Brian said, you can find the show on Twitter at Warm Weather Fans. We want to hear from you. We want to thank everyone for listening and watching. We just eclipsed 200 subscribers on YouTube. That's a real big milestone we're all very proud of. We appreciate everyone. If you're not subscribed, please do.
And tell your friends.
Tell your friends. All right. With that, thank you for everyone for watching. I can't get out of here quicker. This has been another episode of Warm Weather Fans.